My name is Kathryn McGuire, and this is my resurrection story. I grew up in a small college town in southern Illinois. My parents are Al and Marge Kent. I'm the youngest of three kids. I have a brother, Bill, and a sister, Karen. I had a good childhood and was fortunate to be raised in a loving, practicing Christian family. My parents were good role models. That they both served actively in their church and community. My dad was always being called to fix something for someone or for the church. My mom was a homemaker, and she did a lot of volunteering. One of the things that she did was deliver Meals on Wheels, which I still do now. She also took turns being room mother for my brother and my sister and I. And I remember she would always notice the kids that were being left out or that were on the fringes. She still has a heart for people who are excluded in some way. Both my parents loved unconditionally, and I'm not saying that they didn't get frustrated or disappointed in us from time to time, but I always knew that I was loved. We went to church every Sunday, and I thought I was a Christian because that's what we were. I think I thought that as long as I said I was a Christian and was mostly good, that I would go to heaven, kind of like a scale. Since I am very introverted and was very shy, I didn't get in a lot of trouble. I know I was taught about forgiveness of sins and grace, but I don't think I really understood how it applied to me or saw how it applied to me. I thought I'm a good person mostly and never really recognized sin in my own life. So I went to college and got a little more exposed to the world, and I strayed a little bit. I graduated and got a job. I moved away from home to Nashville, and I went to church a few times. I tried out a few, but none of them really seemed to fit, and I just kind of quit going. I got married, which lasted 7 years, and even though we both grew up in church, we didn't go. We struggled all through that marriage, both relationally and financially. 5 years into the marriage, we had our son Nicholas, and Nick is the one really good thing that came out of that marriage. But having a baby made the struggle even harder. My marriage was falling apart, and I knew that we needed some kind of support. And I also wanted my child to grow up in church like I had. I was working in Dixon at the time, and Nick was going to Dixon First Baptist daycare, and so I started going there. His dad had grown up Baptist, and I had hoped that he would join us, but he never did. So after a few Sundays, a young woman named Vicki Cox invited me to join her Sunday school class, and it was a couples class, but her husband didn't attend either, so it was very comfortable for the two of us to go together. And I could tell right away that they really cared about each other. I saw and felt something in that group that had been missing for a long time. Peace, assurance, faith, community, love. I wanted and needed what they had. My marriage was falling apart, and I was hanging on by a thread, and I felt like such a failure. The Baptist church talked a lot about sin and forgiveness, and I was already doing a lot of self-reflection. For the first time, I began to recognize sin in my own life. It was really easy to just blame my ex-husband for everything that went wrong, but I began owning my role in the failed marriage. We still ended up divorced, but I experienced a lot of personal and spiritual growth during that time. For the first time, I started really reading and studying the Bible on my own. I had like dabbled in the 4 Gospels, but not a lot. I became hungry for it, and the Holy Spirit spoke to me through the Bible. and the Word came alive. And I saw the connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament and God's faithfulness throughout. Becoming a parent gave me a whole new perspective on God's love for His children. And I was really suddenly aware that I was His child. Reading the Word, I recognized my need for forgiveness and grace. The Baptist Church started a singles class, and I was one of the founding members. We were a group of struggling misfits trying to figure things out, some of God's favorite people to use. That group really loved on Nick and me, especially my friend Vicki Crosby, who passed away from COVID complications 2 years ago. I met a wonderful, good man named Don McGuire in that Sunday school class. We've been married for 28 years now. We suddenly became a very blended family with Don's kids, Marty and Laura, and my Nick. Then Mindy came along. As each of them became teenagers, none of them really felt like they belonged with the youth group there at our old church. And in fact, Nick started coming to WCN with some friends of his. We knew they were good kids, and we were just happy that he was connecting. Then he told us that he felt called into vocational ministry in the Church of the Nazarene. And so we decided we better go check that church out some. We loved our old church, but the first Sunday we came here, it felt like home. When the church administrator position became available, Don encouraged me to talk to Pastor Darren about it. I'm so thankful to Pastor Darren and the church board for having the confidence and giving me a chance. I was stretched and grew so much working here, and I was able to overcome a little bit of my timidity. All of the pastors here are so dedicated and loving, and I'm blessed to have them as friends. Don and I decided that it was time for me to retire, mostly because of health issues, especially when Don's kidney doctor told him it was time for him to get on the transplant list and start dialysis soon. Started looking into becoming a live donor for him. We were amazed when I got the call from St. Thomas saying that I was a good match for him. I know so many people have been praying for his health for many years. And I know they've prayed through the kidney transplant and our recovery. We felt those prayers, and I believe that the kidney match was an answer to them. God is so faithful, and His prevenient grace brought me back to the church and rewrote my story. I'm Kathryn. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me.